Hello.
Howdy, we're back again. I have a question for you.
What?
Did you get that itch taken care of this morning?
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys all know what that is, right? That's called an itchy trigger finger.
No, but I got a blood blister and a big pinch on my pinky because you have to be careful where your pinky is when you slam your clip into the gun.
Yes, you do. Well, a lot of you may be wondering why we're back again in another video so soon.
We've been watching videos, haven't we?
Yes.
Trying to get caught up in watching everybody else's videos.
Yes, and we watched a video from Son of Thunder today, Dallas, Canada, Kyla, Out of the Box, Gilbert, JW Crisis. Hey, Gilbert, you know, when you put that picture up with you sharing that round table with the governing idiots at Watchtower, it kind of made me think that, well, you know, maybe I should start running for a governing body member. Do you guys think I'd fit that bill? We also spent some time watching Susan Gaskins. We also watched some JW YouTubers where they show their congregation all getting together and how they're all lobbying to, you know, send these letters to Russia.
There was probably, what, 30, 40 people in that congregation? And they had food up on the literature counter in the back, and they were all sitting around writing these letters, and if they needed help, they had a table set up with a couple of, you know, the friends there, and I mean, it was just, everybody was just, you know, all around talking and writing their letters. It's like...
Yeah, and a video from a Russian JW that was very thankful that governing body member was able to give a talk or
a good old pep talk.
Read a letter to the congregations, you know, in the Russian language, and you know, it was just one of them feel-good moments for the Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia.
Oh, the governing body cares about us.
Yeah, and we concluded by watching Mark Latham's latest one, and that one really got Kim and I to think about.
It was very touching,
this
Mark.
video. Thank you, Mark. And also thank you, Mark, for reminding us about Rika and her story, because what a lot of you don't realize that when this incident first happened, Rika actually reached out to Kim and I, and we actually Skyped with her for several hours.
It was very upsetting, very traumatic.
Yes.
And so our hearts, you know, go out to Rika and all the other victims, you know, who have suffered so much at the hands of this cult.
So, Rika, you know, you're definitely in our thoughts also. We have a lot of commonalities regarding this. And it got me to really to think, because there's been some in this community that dare throw out the narrative that, oh, I hate to tell you people, but this is not a community. So I'm going to read the sociological definition of community.
Because our daughter is a sociology major.
Yes. A community is a small or large social group, a social unit, a group of people who have something in common. Now, when we watched the videos from the XJW's YouTubers this afternoon, we all have something in common. Okay, so it goes on, such as norms. Well, we all have a normal history because we've all been abuse victims of Watchtower. We all had a religion in common. See, religion is considered a community. Values or identity. Often, but not always, community shares a sense of place that is situated in a given geographical area, e.g., a country, village, town, or neighborhood. And because of the past definition of communities, there has been a change regarding the definition of communities. Now I'm going to just go back and read another definition, which is number one, a social group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality. Well, don't most of us reside in the specific locality of YouTube or on Facebook? A shared government, and often have a common cultural and historical heritage.
Definitely.
Don't we have a historical heritage? It's poor through Watchtower's design, but we have this heritage that we all have to deal with now as a community, don't we? Number 3, I'm going to skip number 2. Number 3 is a social, religious, occupational, or other group sharing common characteristics. Don't we all have common characteristics? A lot of us have been disfellowshipped or all being shunned. We all used to believe we were in the true religion. We all believed that if we didn't stick with that true religion, then our God Jehovah was going to destroy us at Armageddon. So I think we can kind of see that we, by definition, can be termed as a community. Now I'm going to read one from an article that comes from the website sociologyguide.com. Yeah, dear, they're right here. we had a little argument about this before I told her I didn't need them. Well, she proved me wrong. I love you, dear. All right. This is what this article begins out by saying. The term community is one of the most elusive and vague in sociology and is by now largely without specific meaning. At the minimum, it refers to a collection of people. At the minimum, it refers to a collection of people in a geographical area. 3 other elements may also be present in any usage. Communities may be thought of as collections of people with a particular social structure. Well, right now, when you watch the videos that we did today and listening to how everybody feels about this ban against Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia, you can really begin to see that there is a social structure because we're all feeling the same way. Although we don't have a hierarchy, but we also allow ex-JW women, and I'm not saying this to be degrading because you can do what you want, but we also listen very intently to the narratives of our ex-JW sisters because we value them in a community. They're of value. Okay?
Whereas witnesses do not.
Whereas right. Whereas Jehovah Witness women, you sit down in that shit chair and you just listen to what the elders or your husband tell you to do. It's not
and
like that.
And we know how well that went.
Yeah, and we all know that in this community that just doesn't happen because the women are more than welcomed to give their opinions and their expertise and their insights on things, and that's exactly what Susan Gaskin did, which was a very terrific video.
And Kyla.
Yeah, and Kyla, yes, and Kyla, very much so. So I'm going to go on here. We can list out the characteristics of a community as follows. Okay, so this is how they're trying to redefine the term community. Number 1, it's a territory. Number 2, close and informal relationships. Number 3, mutuality. Number 4, common values and beliefs. Number 5, organized interaction. Well, isn't that what the VHH is at times? And some of these other podcasts? Forums, Facebooks. Organized interaction. Number 6, strong group feeling. Yeah. Well, don't we qualify for that? Hell yeah, we do. And number 7, cultural similarities. So when we sit in front of the camera and haphazardly, like someone has done and said, I hate to tell you we're not a community, that just shows that there's no level of research and or trying to redefine who and what we are and where we fit in now as a group of people that have lost a community, a religious community.
But if at the very least we have mutuality.
Yes. So by these definitions, we are a community. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with Watchtower
Where's Mike and Kim going with
the
this?
Russian ban? Well, all of us at one time or another have watched a video regarding young people leaving home and joining gangs. And this is where we begin to draw the parallels, because Mark Latham made a very good point that maybe we should be using the narrative extremists, because when a young person leaves home to join a gang, there's usually an initiation rite, and usually that's...
Well, usually, when they interview them, some of the documentaries we've watched, they're looking for a sense of community.
Something that they're not getting at home. Watchtower comes along and tries to fill that need of community and
family.
And family, yes. And usually when somebody joins a gang or a group, there's always this initiation rite. For a person joining a gang, it might be killing somebody. It might be robbing a store. It might be raping somebody. Something that is extreme. Watchtower's initiation is, oh, Brother Mike Brooks is now an unbaptized publisher. And a little bit later you get, oh, Brother Brooks was baptized at this year's district convention, and there's your initiation rite. But there's one thing that all of these, there are two things actually, all these extreme groups have in common. And the last thing is, they all deal in death. Every single one of them deals in death. And you don't have to look long and hard to realize that Watchtower deals in death. They implant in the mind of every Jehovah's Witness, myself included, Kim included, and everybody else, this idea of death.
Well, the thing is for anyone to call Jehovah's Witnesses a cult like we do, we know what cults are like. Like you said, good example, Jim Jones, Charles Manson and his cult, the Temple Gate.
Mm-hmm.
All of these cults. And all of us will say, yes, Watchtower is a cult. But what we want to bring out is, how does it all really start?
Because this is the other thing that they have in common, but it's not as apparent as the ultimate results. Because this is what leads up to the ultimate results of death, whether it be suicide or even mentally killing anybody that leaves the organization through the shunning policy. So what we're going to look at is how it all begins. And it just so happens to be that this particular broadcast,
the April 2017 broadcast, had one little tiny clip in it that caught my attention. And I said, Mike, look at this. And after watching Mark's video, it just happened to all tie in. It's like,
And it just all clicked, because every cult has to have a beginning. Every person that leaves home and joins a gang, they're sucked in by one thing. Do you think they're sucked in with the idea that, hey, if you join this gang, if you join this cult, you're going to have to prove your worthiness by killing somebody? Well, no, everybody would turn away. There's a pretense that's put forth first, and then the death comes later. And what is the pretense? Shall we listen?
yes.
In 1993, I was amazed when a white person came preaching house to house. They came with another white man who could speak Venda fluently. That excited me a lot. And as time went by, I came to realize that this is the true religion, because they were faithful friends and they spoke to me like we were family.
In the late 1980s, the government granted us permission to come in and build kingdom halls in the black townships. The local community were absolutely amazed to see all these whites pouring in and working hard along with their black brothers to build these beautiful kingdom halls.
It was a wonderful privilege to get to know other young people of different races.
Everyone in the congregation feels like family as long as they serve Jehovah.
Did you all catch it? It gives them a sense of family, of community, of belonging. You know, here's the black sister in between the two white sisters and says, oh, you know, we're like family as long as they serve Jehovah.
And there's the qualifier. See, there's the death march begins right there. And it shows conclusively that their love is ingenuous. What's the word I want?
Conditional.
Disingenuous. Yeah, very conditional.
Yeah, because what happens if, like, one of the white sisters leaves the organization? You know, even if she just fades away. Oh, well, she's an apostate, you know.
Yeah.
So that love is conditional. And we all know this.
Yeah.
We've all experienced this.
And this JW that's got her arms around two white women might be the most honest-hearted Jehovah's Witness in the world, but look at how she qualifies her love. As long as you remain with Jehovah, as long as you remain in the organization. See, there's the beginning of the death march, because eventually, let's just say this sister gets married and her husband's in an automobile wreck and he is in the operating room dying, and the doctor comes in and says, we can save your husband's life. Just let him have a blood transfusion and he'll live. No, I have to obey Jehovah. Let him die. She could be the most honest-hearted Jehovah's Witness in the world, but she's on a death march.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, this was very subtle. Now, Mike and I remember, we tried to think back, and we have never heard it put exactly like this. Usually it's like, oh, I love my brothers and sisters like family. We've never heard it qualified quite like this. So we figure, you know, these are very scripted out.
Very.
Precise scripting. And why is the governing body, you know, Watchtower, putting this in? Only if you keep serving Jehovah, you know. So you're family to me until you decide to leave.
Right.
And
exactly.
We've already, all of us, experienced that. You know,
Yeah.
Our own flesh and blood mothers, you know. The minute you leave, you're dead to me.
Right. And because of that, we have become a social group of any size whose members reside in a specific locality. That could be YouTube, Facebook, Skyping, share government, and often have a common cultural and historical heritage. And usually that historical heritage is built upon the facade of family love. And when in reality, it's not family love. It's conditional and it's manipulated love.
Exactly.
Very much so.
So just a few thoughts on, you know, connecting, you know, because of so many videos, you know, about the Russian ban. And then, you know, they come out with this April broadcast. And it's like, oh, well, we're family as long as you serve Jehovah.
Yeah, so are they trying to send some sort of subliminal message to the Russian brothers and sisters that even though you're going to be banned, you're still loved? As long as you remain in the organization, you're still family. And of course, as many of you have come to know and realize, especially those that Kim and I have had the privilege of Skyping with, there is a sense of community. There is a sense of being. We all have a common goal. And, well, most of us, we want Watchtower banned because
we want the abuse to stop.
Because they're not a true religion. They're not a religion under the strictest biblical definition. They are a cult. And cults are not religions per se. They're groups of people that are hell-bent on sending their members on a death march, one way or the other.
Yeah. And I just want to mention that our hearts and prayers go out to the civilians there in Syria, that were gassed and bombed, especially the children. Kyla's right. That was very sad.
And let's not confuse, friends, the banning of a militant group and or the banning of an extreme religious cult. Let's not confuse what's really going on here, because what's happening in Syria is the banning of a militant group. Let's not forget that.
According to the government.
According to the government, yes, but no, the government has the right to be the government. And Gilbert brought that out very nicely when he said, pay
Putin's things to
Putin's
Putin.
things to Putin's, but God's things to God. So these governments, for the time being, have a God-given right to exist, just like Satan has a God-given right to reside here on the earth. It's up to us to be able to see what's really in front of our faces. And that means for Jehovah's Witnesses to do the same thing. Look at your governing body, look at what you've been asked to do, and look at what you're being asked to do right now.
Well, I just want to mention that by them asking all, 7.5 million witnesses to write letters to Russia and flood them, not only is this propaganda, but they've become lobbyists now. Since when, does a religion ask their members to lobby to governments?
Right.
I mean, what's the difference between...
It was Gilbert that brought that out.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cow, Gilbert, I never even thought about that.
Yeah. So what if Watchtower goes and lobbies? Well, that's probably what they're doing, is going to the UN and lobbying for their rights.
Yeah. And quite honestly, if you look at what's happened in this country with some lobbying, we've actually lost rights.
Yeah.
Because of lobbyists. So, friends, it is what it is. My encouragement is always, whether you believe the Bible is God's word or not, there is still a tremendous amount of practical wisdom and good, solid guidance to live your life by. Now, I myself like to believe that it was a superior intellect that put all of that together. Some choose not to. Whether you do, hey, you know what? Whether you believe the Bible is God's word or not, why don't you just believe that Confucius put it together? We always go, Confucius say, a man who walks on thin ice will get wet. Something like that. There's practical wisdom in that book, whether it comes from God or man put it together. Somebody had to do some deep intellectual thinking when they put that book together. In fact, I'm going to give you an example right here. Many of your scientists today who study astronomy and take these huge telescopes and point them into the deepest regions of space are beginning to come out and say, hey, the universe is still expanding. In fact, it's even speeding up. I find it interesting that when you read the book of Job, and when God begins to question Job, God says, where were you when I was stretching out the heavens? So if that book was written by a human being, that human being must have had a tremendous amount of universal knowledge to be able to state in behalf of God, where were you when I was stretching out the heavens? Especially now that today's scientists can take those telescopes, point them in the deepest regions of space, and see that the universe is still expanding.
Yep. So thank you so much for watching, and our love goes out to all of you as usual. And be nice to one another. There's a lot of fighting going on, so be nice to one another. Quit calling people names. I've been called stupid and ignorant. We've been called stupid and ignorant recently, and it's like, wow, can't we just all get along?
No, because that's how deep the indoctrination of Watchtower goes.
Yeah.
That's
So-
part of the depth that I talk about when I say Watchtower. Make no mistake about it. I know how deep this indoctrination goes, and that's part of it.
Yeah. Yep. So, love you all. Have a
Thanks
wonderful
for
weekend.
watching.
Bye.